and digest it. But it's a very interesting line because the Packers are still a great team.
Yes,
it's just kind of
excellent
it's
team
in Jordan Love's hands. So the Lakers seem to be on their way to a win. They can't keep a lead against the Thunder. Apparently, 19-point lead. OKC came back from a 26-point deficit last week to beat the Lakers and rallied for another one last night in LA. They outscored the Lakers 35-24 in the fourth quarter to get the 107-104 win. But the story was Russell Westbrook, who had quite a few miscues at the end of the game. With the game on the line, he turned the ball over with less than 30 seconds to go and missed a game-tying three as time expired. He also had a really weird miscue on the defensive ends, just leaving his man for an easy layup. It's just an odd ending for him. But he did have 22.2 points, 8.4 rebounds, 8.1 assists, and he's averaging that this season, 4.8 turnovers per game as well. So the other story is LeBron is expected to miss at least 1 week with an abdominal strain.
Listen, LeBron's in year, 18, 19? He takes time off. And this team is not the same. He's still incredibly valuable.
It's just concerning that he's missing this time so early. The games next week for them are at the Blazers, the Hornets, the Heat, and Timberwolves at home. So it's quite a stretch for them going into another week without LeBron James.
Good stuff, Joy, with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd.
Unnecessary risks to solve their many problems. They overcompensate. That's what John Dorsey did here. This is what people often do that don't save their money and invest early in life. They take big unnecessary swings in their 60s on investments to overcompensate for mistakes earlier in life. This was never going to work. And ask yourself this, Ohio, and you watch the show, though you claim you don't, because I see the ratings. What works in Cleveland? Grinder J.C. Tretter, the center who was the president of the Players Association, smart and a grinder. Midwestern work ethos, Joe Thomas. Overlooked Nick Chubb. Hardworking, loves football, grinder Jarvis Landry. Not dramatic receivers and cocky quarterbacks. Cleveland's history, Brian Sipe, Bernie Kosar. Go look at your baseball, your basketball, LeBron James. Yeah, he's a star. But LeBron James, high standards, puts the work in, very demanding, very smart. That's what works in Cleveland because it mostly works everywhere. But losing franchises take big swings to overcompensate for their many holes. This was never going to work. We had our doubts. We told you early. The data suggested it wasn't working, and you kept clinging to it. Hopefully now that you're a better franchise today than 3 years ago, you'll make the next several steps. Cocky isn't how you win Super Bowls. Nick Chubb, J.C. Tretter, Jarvis Landry. The soul of your franchise now is grinders, overlooked grinders. So this is interesting. And by the way, the New York Jets, that game last night, the Jets, I thought Robert Saleh was a defensive whiz. Adam Gase was hired for offense. Every year the offense got worse. Robert Saleh was hired for defense. And that first half by the Jets defensively was one of the worst defensive first halves I've seen all years. But here's what's interesting. So it got to be a little concerning that the backup quarterbacks for the Jets in the last 2 weeks have thrown for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that is way better than Zach Wilson. Now, Zach Wilson is a rookie. But remember, New York, you blame Sam Darnold for all your problems. He's now 4-4, 5 rushing touchdowns, would be in the playoffs today. And that's not with a great team. That's with Carolina, probably a bottom 3 offensive line. He is now apparently competent. And I'm not saying Darnold's great, but you blamed him for everything. The Colts last night, first half alone, 4 drives, 4 TDs, 280 yards. And you have a defensive head coach. So it's increasingly looking toxic. And what worries me is, and this is why I worried about Zach Wilson, Belichick in a year and a half has turned around New England. They look real. And Mike McCarthy, y'all criticize Mike McCarthy, but he's been there a year and a half. They look really good in Dallas. And the New York Jets, in the last 11 years, you're on your fourth head coach, your fourth general manager, and your sixth quarterback. The Jets are now getting into Detroit Lions territory. No division titles for now, 19 years? You're getting into a really toxic territory where free agents will look at you, roll their eyes, and choose your rival. And the scariest part is you have a new GM and a new coach. You can't start over. But I said this about Zach Wilson. I said my doubts about Zach Wilson is that he played hero ball, that he was cocky, and sometimes he played entitled. I likened him to a much better version of Johnny Manziel, who was often playing for himself, not for the team. I got a lot of pushback on that. But as you watch Robert Saleh talk after the game, listen to his words and listen to what he's saying.
That's part of the beauty of being able to sit back and watch and learn and see the offense from being run through the lens of another quarterback. Now he's got two quarterbacks who have been very efficient in the way they've run this offense, and so for him, just to understand, we talk about boring. It's not necessarily boring to take what the defense is giving you.
Hey, Zach, stop showing off. Stop showing off. Take what the defense gives you. And this is why where a quarterback lands matter. It is really hard for all these young quarterbacks. That's why I try to not be too brutal first year in the league. It's hard. Then you add organizational dysfunction. Are we really surprised that Mac Jones is the quarterback that appears to be growing most quickly, and that Justin Fields has often been engulfed by a terrible offensive line, and Trevor Lawrence is having to overcome an awful defense? Robert Saleh is telling you, hey, rookie quarterback, stop playing hero ball. This is why I predicted the Jets would be last. They'd win 4 or 5 games. And my number one quarterback concern in this league for all these rookies, it wasn't Trevor, it wasn't Justin, it wasn't Trey Lance, it wasn't Mac Jones, it was Zach Wilson. Having to overcome this level of toxicity and dysfunction for a good quarterback, for a veteran quarterback, would be a handful.